In addition, the end of federal aid impact dollars will wipe out $40 million of funding from our education budget from prior levels. To be sure, though, certain other actions of the last Congress have been supportive of us. Healthcare reforms are necessary and positive overall. But here as well, there are financial consequences due to the Medicaid match requirements that are higher for us than other states. It is evident that the recession has caused us great damage, and our government funds have not yet been restored. This year, our general fund revenues are projected to be down by 20% from pre-2008, pre-recession levels. Personal income taxes are down 16%, and corporate income taxes are down 71%, for a net income tax decline of 31%. Gross receipts taxes are down 5%. For the general fund, we now project a revised shortfall for this year of $75 million, and for next year, $132 million. And these deficits do not include the unfunded pension fund contribution, which if fully met, would increase the annual shortfalls by approximately $70 million each year. Until now, we have resisted the more dire measures that governments across the country have taken. Across the country, governments have been forced to reduce their expenditures and employment. Layoffs and furloughs have become the norm. And in this fiscal year alone, 26 states have laid off or furloughed workers. Since August of 2008, state and local governments have laid off 397,000 employees, with school districts the hardest hit at 205,000 education jobs. And over the past 24 months, 34 states have implemented tax and fee increases, included increases in statewide sales taxes, personal and corporate income taxes. We all understand how critical government paychecks are to the lifeblood of our economy, and we have made every effort to keep our people working. We too, all of us, had hoped that the national recovery would have made unnecessary such extraordinary measures as other governments have already taken. But the time has come when these measures are unavoidable. Specifically, I will be undertaking the following. I will submit legislation implementing a 2-year freeze on salaries and instituting 3 unpaid holidays. We will not implement the previously planned $31 million in salary increases, quite simply because we cannot afford to do so. I will implement allotment cutbacks of $17.1 million to executive branch departments and agencies in the current fiscal budget year. We will continue our hiring and limited hiring and attrition programs with priorities given to law enforcement, to healthcare, and to education. And we will lay off approximately 300 per diem and part-time employees. We need to increase our revenues. We will have to raise taxes, and we will have to collect those taxes that are due. In this regard, I am pleased that we have finally resolved the long-running litigation surrounding property taxes in the territory. No liens were sold, no one lost their home, but now is the time for all to pay what they owe. And the collection of everything that is owed matters, as is the requirement that everyone pays what they owe. We have provided for payment plans on real property, and we have implemented a more aggressive collection practice to identify those who have not paid at all and those who have long-term obligations. Specifically, I'm proposing the following. I will request a 2% increase in the hotel room tax from 8% to 10%. I will request as well a timeshare occupancy fee of $10 per day on units that are rented or exchanged. These 2 actions will bolster our tourism revolving fund by $6 million, and these funds will be applied directly to airlift development, tourism product development, and increased television advertising. I will request a cell phone tax, similar to that applicable to landlines, targeted to the operations of our emergency management apparatus. And finally, I will seek your approval for a 1% increase in the gross receipts tax. And as we take this particularly onerous step, we shall begin to work towards the ultimate transition away from the gross receipts tax to a sales tax that can be more transparent and effectively applied, collected, and enforced. None of these actions are easy, and each one will provoke discord among segments of our population. But taken together, they will allow us to address this more severe situation and avoid the massive layoffs and severe cutbacks on services that will be required if we do not move down this path together. I anticipate that when this plan is implemented, all of the independent agencies and authorities that do not fall under the executive branch will take comparable steps. I shall be writing to the chairs and the heads of such agencies, and of course will instruct all government members of all relevant boards and commissions to move for such actions without delay. And I would respectfully request that the legislative and judicial branches of the government follow suit. We must simply curtail spending across all levels of government. Here again, I would argue that anything less is not fair. I have spoken often about the challenges of securing our government employees' retirement system since my first days as governor, even before GERS funding was further undermined by the global recession. And it has served as a backdrop for many of the decisions we have made and actions that we have taken. This remains our single greatest outstanding obligation. And this is because GERS itself has said that it will be out of money within 12 years. Tackling the GERS problem does not begin with the budget of the government, but rather with the state of our entire economy and the trajectory of our economic future. Accordingly, each of the actions that we have taken to build our rum industry, to support business growth and development, to streamline permitting and business formation, all are critical to the economic base that can produce the revenues to support long-term obligations. We have no choice but to take all the necessary steps to bridge the gap between our revenues and our expenditures. All the while, we must work and find ways that do not cost money, indeed can even save money, to improve the quality of governmental services, both to our people and to support economic development and business-wide territorial growth. As we move forward with the revenue and expenditure measures for the near term, we must move forward with plans to consolidate government and create more efficiencies here and now and reduce costs in the long term. I will look to this body this year, finally, to act on our plans for the cabinet-level Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation so that its name matches what it does each day to streamline and improve the quality of services to so many of our children and to our youth. I will again ask for your approval of legislation to bring the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority back into the central government. While the creation of a separate authority may have been well-intended, it is now clear that the Waste Management Authority is fully dependent on the government for its financial support, to meet its biweekly payroll, and for its ability to execute long-term contracts. As such, it is time that we realign financial responsibility and financial accountability and bring that agency back into the government as a cabinet-level agency. I am also in agreement with the views of members of this body who have made the case that we should, without delay, approve the merger of the Virgin Islands Port Authority and the West Indian Company Limited. These two public entities share tremendous responsibility for the crucial port of Charlotte Amalie. but too often still find themselves competing with each other, duplicating costs, and consuming scarce resources. This we cannot afford if we are to keep St. Thomas as the premier cruise destination in the Eastern Caribbean and continue expansion of cruise ship calls to St. Croix. I look forward to working with you as we carefully craft legislation to combine these two strategically important entities. Similarly, I agree with those members of this body who have spoken to me about the need to merge the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority and the university's Research and Technology Park, as once more we look to streamline functions to improve our ability to focus on building e-commerce and more adroitly respond to the needs of growing knowledge-based businesses. My administration will work closely with this body and the leadership of the University of the Virgin Islands to ensure that its programs and activities are relevant to the needs of this community. The high cost of energy remains a challenge. It affects what we pay for almost everything. It is a major concern for the individual ratepayer and a key issue in our economic development strategies. We know the crippling impact that spiraling energy costs has on our businesses and on our family budgets. And I need not elaborate, but we all fear the arrival of our utility bill each month. For government as well as individuals and businesses, the challenge is to reduce energy consumption overall and the use of electricity generated with fossil fuels in particular. As a territory, we are implementing our plan to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels by 60% over the next 15 years. For the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority, this means producing more efficiently, which is pursuing through its usage of waste heat recovery boilers and more aggressive maintenance schedule on existing units. As it seeks to diversify away from its dependence on oil, it is evaluating the engineering options for converting a large portion of its electricity generation on St. Thomas and St. Croix to burn natural gas. The Water and Power Authority also plans to issue proposals for solar generation in the next year, is evaluating the feasibility of wind power on a utility scale, and is working with the Waste Management Authority on developing waste to energy as a part of its generation portfolio. For individuals seeking to reduce energy use, the Virgin Islands Energy Office has offered rebates for energy efficient appliances and renewable energy systems. And with the stimulus funding, the Energy Office has underwritten energy efficiency programs for several community organizations and is now working with energy service companies to improve efficiency at our public schools and then with small business users. It is not realistic to talk about energy costs or alternatives in our community without acknowledging Hovensa and the important role they have as we address our energy economy. This is especially important as we evaluate the options ahead as the time comes to renegotiate the long-term agreement between Hovensa and the government, and we reaffirm and strengthen our relationship. However, Hovensa today is facing a number of financial and environmental challenges in a tough global economy. We must be realistic as we build a future of solvency and security. Hovensa is a vital part of our economy and to our community, as many Virgin Islanders depend on Hovensa directly or indirectly for their jobs and their livelihood. I believe that we must work hard to improve our relationship with Hovensa. We must sit with them and we must work with them. They are an important part of our history, and it is critically important